Hello, my name's Bev and I'm the author of the book Please Eat, A Mother's Struggle to Free Her Teenage Son from Anorexia, which describes our family's battle with the deadly eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, which my teenage son Ben developed back in 2009 when he was just 15 years old. Even though in 2011 it was still early days as far as my experience of being a parent of a young person with an eating disorder goes, and also in terms of Ben's recovery. But by then I was thinking about all those things that I wish I'd known when I first realised that Ben was starting to behave strangely back in the summer of 2009, when his eating disorder was starting to manifest itself. And there's certain things that I wish I'd known back then, and this post is called What Should You Do If Your Child is Behaving Like Ben Was at the Start, and it's from the 19th of February 2011. The thing is, you don't expect boys to get anorexia or other eating disorders, so as a parent you might notice that something isn't quite right, but you aren't sure whether you should seek professional help. Also, there's a misconception that to be suffering from anorexia, you have to be stick thin. Obviously, during the early period, they might still be within a healthy weight range. So if you visit your GP with your teenager in tow, you might not be taken seriously if their BMI is still within a safe range. As a parent, you have a gut feeling when something isn't right, and if your teenager is demonstrating behaviour similar to that described elsewhere in this blog, take them to see the GP and explain your concerns. If the GP fobs you off, just keep pestering them. With us, the alarm bells were ringing loud and clear, but the GP wasn't taking me seriously. The GP never explained what professional help was available. It took the school nurse to tell me about CAMS. And then I had to twist our GP's arm to get Ben referred. After that, we had to wait months before we got our first appointment. This limbo time can be really scary as you watch your child plummet into the eating disorder. You feel helpless and frightened, knowing your original gut instinct was right. The first thing you should do during this limbo is to get yourself clued up on the facts and get some good peer support. That is why it's important to read up on anything you can about evidence-based treatments of eating disorders, and visit the Feast website, which I've talked about before, and its forum, the Around the Dinner Table forum. You'll find links below, and Feast has a list of books that may be helpful to you. It's better to go for something that is recommended by other parents who've been through it and come out the other side than maybe just taking potluck and buying every book on Amazon like I did to start with. Anyway, definitely get onto the Around the Dinner Table forum. Introduce yourself. Dozens of other mums and dads will quickly come to your aid, offering help, advice, and most important of all, a shoulder to cry on. That's the end of that post. One of the things I always say about my blog and about my book was that the reason I wrote them was to help other families avoid having to plough through the very long and very complex learning curve about eating disorders, because you're doing this at the same time as being absolutely terrified while you're watching your son or daughter plummet into goodness knows what. But I always say, please, please, please trust your gut instinct. Teenagers can be tricky in a whole range of different ways, but you know when something isn't right, and when something just niggles, you just know it's not them, they're behaving strangely. A few years back I did a talk for parents of young people with eating disorders in Edinburgh, and I transcribed it afterwards for my own records, really, and also to share on my blog. And it might be helpful to just read you the end bit, which goes like this. So, looking back over Ben's illness, what could have been more helpful? Definitely for the professionals, from the GP through to CAMS, to have taken me seriously and taken urgent action. To have to hang around for months watching your child head towards possible death because they can't access treatment is something that no parent should ever have to go through. And also to focus on weight gain and weight restoration first and foremost, and not just settle for good enough. I would also like to have been given help with getting him to eat, and for me to be included as a vital part of the treatment team. After all, I was with Ben all week, and CAMS were only with him for 60 minutes. It would also have been helpful for the professionals to recognise that the signs with boys can be different from girls. Boys don't get periods. Boys can often develop an eating disorder via an exercise addiction. And boys can possibly have a higher BMI, just like Ben did. And also to realise that young people with eating disorders can pretend that everything is perfectly okay, made even more convincing when their BMI is still relatively normal. Yes, I would like to have seen less emphasis on BMI as an indicator of seriousness and of recovery. Ben had been a rugby player, so his BMI was pretty high back then, and I think that this is the main reason why the alarm bells weren't ringing and why Ben's case wasn't seen as urgent throughout the whole process. But on a positive note, what did help? Definitely the feast community, which was an absolute lifesaver, to find other people who's been through exactly the same as we were going through, and also to read about evidence-based treatment for eating disorders. You'll find a link below to my blog, and you'll also find a link to my website where you can download free PDFs of my blog, and also a link to Amazon where you can buy a copy of my book.